publication of confidential documents on the agency. In fact, the collection of some 8,761 documents, which we published on Tuesday, is already the largest publication of confidential documents on the agency. The material comes from an isolated, that means disconnected from other computer systems, top secret security network situated inside the CIA's Center for Cyber Intelligence. Now that center is both in Virginia, but also importantly there is a branch hidden inside the Frankfurt consulate in Germany. We've put out some aerial shots of that and the details from our publications about how CIA officers are instructed to penetrate German customs and operate there to develop attacks and support attacks across Europe, Africa and the Middle East from the Frankfurt consulate. Now, it's already come out as a result of our earlier publications. I'll go into reactions and updates quickly, but the Central Intelligence Agency lost control of its entire cyber weapons arsenal. What do I mean by cyber weapons? Those are weaponized viruses, trojans, and malware designed to penetrate the smartphones, smart TVs, computer systems of the world, and then control them, disable them, insert information to them, extract information from them. Now, this is a historic act of devastating incompetence to have created such an arsenal and stored it all in one place and not secured it. WikiLeaks discovered the material as a result of it being passed around a number of different members of the US intelligence community out of control in an unauthorized fashion. Just yesterday we've had a tip-off from a virus researcher who says that he believes that one of the viruses whose descriptions we had published that infects Apple Macintoshes, in particular their UEFI boot system, that he was attacked by that. So it looks like not only is that material being spread around contractors and former American computer hackers for hire, but now may be in the black market, or is perhaps being used by these American hackers who sometimes, cross both sides of the fence. They're called grey hats to attacking others. So the CIA developed a giant arsenal, what appears to be the largest arsenal of Trojans and viruses in the world, that attacks most of the systems that journalists, people in government, politicians, CEOs and average people use, didn't secure it, lost control of it, and then appears to have covered up that fact. We see some press reportage, and we've detected some things as well, that the Central Intelligence Agency became aware within the last couple of months that it had lost that material, or that we had that material, and has not disclosed that to the public, at least, has not warned the public that those loose cyber weapons arsenal is out there. It's a very interesting question, I think, about who it is told in government and when. Did it tell Barack Obama? Did Barack Obama conceal that during the election, after the election? Was President Donald Trump informed? And if so, why has the Central Intelligence Agency not acted with speed to come together with Apple, Microsoft, and other manufacturers to defend us all from its own weapon systems? Now, this brings into question the entire concept of cyber warfare, because it is our analysis, and stated also by many other experts, that it is impossible to keep effective control of cyber weapons. So what does that mean? Well, it means that if you build them, eventually you will lose them. They are just information. There's no barrier for them spreading across the world. They must be used on the internet. So they must be placed on the internet to be used. They must go to computers to infect them. And therefore, when that occurs, they can get out of control. And there's a very easy cover for any grey market operator, contractor, or rogue intelligence agent to take that material and start a company with it, start a consulting company, a hacker for hire company. Now, we're very fortunate in this case that our sources step forward to us so we can tell you what has been going on, and so the various manufacturers like Apple, Google, and so on can start to develop countermeasures. Now, some of those countermeasures have already been put in place according to the manufacturers in response to this. One or two virus companies also say that they have developed countermeasures. But others say that they need more information. Now, WikiLeaks has not published any cyber weapons themselves. We've published documents describing them. Why? It's fairly obvious. We don't want the journalists and people of the world and our sources being hacked using these weapons. But the problem is that with limited information about the details of how those cyber weapons operate, there is a limited ability to try and produce security fixes for iPhones, for Samsung TVs, for Android phones that are produced by Google, for Microsoft and for Linux, because the exact technical details are not known. Now, WikiLeaks has a lot more information on what has been going on with the cyber weapons program. And so I want to announce today that after considering what we think is the best way to proceed and hearing these calls from some of the manufacturers, we have decided to work with them to give them some exclusive access to the additional technical details we have so that fixes can be developed and pushed out so people can be secured. And then once this material is effectively disarmed by us, by removing critical components, we will publish additional details about what has been occurring. Now, I want to draw attention to a statement that the president of Microsoft has put out. And this is something that we have been working on as well, and that a great many others have been calling for. So here is the quote. Just as the Fourth Geneva Convention has long protected civilians in times of war, we now need a digital Geneva Convention that will commit governments to protecting civilians from nation-state attacks in times of peace. And just as the Fourth Geneva Convention recognized that the protection of civilians required the active involvement of the Red Cross, protection against nation-state cyber attacks requires the active assistance of technology companies and companies like WikiLeaks, which can provide information about these attacks. The tech sector plays a unique role in the internet's, as the internet's first responders, and we therefore should commit ourselves to a collective action which will make the internet a safer place, affirming our role as a neutral digital Switzerland that assists people all over the world to be secure. So now I will go on to some questions. First of all, and I confess this is one from me, does WikiLeaks have a position on this sort of material? Well, WikiLeaks has a position on publishing in general. We fight for the rights of publishers to publish. We fight for the rights of sources to be protected. And we fight for media accuracy, having obtained a perfect record in the last 10 years. It's one of our comparative advantages. But otherwise, we don't have a position on particular issues that we're publishing about. But in this case, we do have a position. We have a position because these types of cyber weapons are used to attack the communication technology that journalists use to communicate with their sources and with each other. The sorts of technology that investigative reporters reporting on the national security sector, reporting on war crimes, use to communicate their information within their media organization and back and forth with their sources. For example, the New York Times has put up a tip line that is based upon the Signal protocol. Now, Signal is a good encryption system for mobile smartphones. But what's the problem? Well, if you control the smartphones, it doesn't matter how good the encryption system is. So Signal and Telegram, from that perspective, can simply be bypassed by attacking the endpoints, attacking one of the telephones belonging to the source or one of the telephones belonging to the journalist. And the New York Times has a central tip line, one phone, that all its tips go to for the Signal protocol. And of course, that phone can be hacked. It doesn't matter what the security system is. As a result, you see the numbers coming into it, and you see the messages exchanged. So WikiLeaks does have a position. We want to secure communications technology because without secure communications technology, journalists are not able to effectively hold the state to account. Is WikiLeaks' protections for its sources, are they affected by this? No. They're not affected, not directly. Why is that? Well, because we're specialists in this area. We're specialists in source protection. And I've known in general about this type of problem for a long time. So our systems are developed to not be exposed. They're not based on smartphones, for example. We have specialized cryptography. There's not susceptible to these types of attacks. On the other hand, are our lawyers susceptible to these types of attacks? Yes, they are. A lot of them are susceptible to these types of attacks. Are our key security staff? No, because we understand that. But we want to protect all our staff and the rights of journalists and sources to communicate effectively. Okay, so that's my question. Now I go into the others. It's a question from CNN. As long as these are overseas targets, isn't it legal for the CIA to do this? Well, first of all, I just like to, it's a legally important question in the United States, but there are many questions that might be asked by CNN. One that seems to defend the interests of the CIA, I think, is a bit problematic, has been the first question to ask. Well, the answer is this. Unfortunately, the CIA does have a history of attacking not only the political parties operating overseas. We just published how the Central Intelligence Agency issued instructions to its staff to penetrate the last French election cycle in 2012, last French presidential election. It has a habit of behaving badly inside the United States as well. Now, that's an extensive habit going on for years. Most recently, in 2014, the CIA was denounced by the US Senate Intelligence Committee because it had hacked their investigation in Congress into the CIA torture program and had used its hackers to retrieve documents that the Senate Intelligence Committee had, evidencing what the Central Intelligence Agency did in terms of torture. Why did it do that? Well, it's given various excuses. The answer probably is because it perceived that that information would be a threat to itself as an institution. This is how institutions behave, especially intelligence institutions. The CIA is the largest intelligence agency in the world by budgetary expenditure, and of course it wants to maximize its own institutional power, and key individuals also want to defend their programs or increase their roles, get themselves into a position where they can cash out and go to work for defense contractors. What about WikiLeaks material in the first part of Alt 7? Does it demonstrate the CIA hacking targets within the United States? That's an interesting question. The answer is not no. There are more than 22,000 IP addresses that we have detected, internet addresses, that correspond to computer systems within the United States. Now, one of the large research projects that we have underway is how many of those systems are attack systems that are used to relay and pass attacks from the CIA out into the rest of the world, and how many of those are intermediary victims, that is, say, an internet service provider which is hacked in order to create an attack somewhere else, overseas, and how many are direct victims, how many correspond to, say, a visitor to the United States from a foreign country, how many correspond to joint operations between the CIA and FBI, with the CIA providing technical support, etc. So it's a complex question that is not yet resolved, but there are more than 22,000 IP addresses corresponding to CIA activities in the United States. A question, is there proof that the CIA are involved in internal struggle, leaking as opposed to something else? Well, we can't comment directly on sourcing. As someone who's studied the behavior for many years of intelligence agencies in different countries, it is an unusual time in the United States to see an intelligence agency so prominently involved in domestic politics. Now, as a sort of level of principle, that's quite problematic. There are arguments on the other side that obviously if there's an extreme government, then perhaps that does call for illegal behavior by an intelligence agency. We don't have an opinion on whether that is the case yet or not in the United States. WikiLeaks is, I guess, intellectually intrigued to see this conflict occurring because it does tend to generate whistleblowers and sources on both sides of the equation. What are the implications for journalists and their sources? Well, I explained previously, these types of attack technology are used to penetrate the computers and phones that journalists use to communicate with each other and to communicate and protect their sources. I think that's an incredible problem. In response to the Edward Snowden disclosures and some others, much more encryption has been used by individual companies specializing in it, like Whisper Systems and like Telegram, but also included into Apple and Microsoft and other products. So that is fairly effective at hindering bulk interception, which is what the National Security Agency's been doing, passively taking all the information, say, that flows from Latin America to North America, or from North America to Europe. But in response, the Central Intelligence Agency, at least, has diversified to specialize on attacking the endpoints prior to encryption occurring or after decryption occurring. And you say, okay, but that at least means that they have to engage in targeted attacks, which is more expensive and might have more of a audit trail. That's true, but we have exposed a particular section of the Central Intelligence Agency called the Automated Implant Branch. So that is not just to develop viruses and other attacks to put into people's computer systems to facilitate a CIA hacker in doing that, but also to automate how that is done. So you can see that between an individual targeted attack, which is direct and invasive, and massive passive bulk interception, there's an intermediary point, which is the increasing automation of targeted attacks. They're automated enough, they start to approach the level of bulk passive interception. We're not there yet for most countries, but we are shifting significantly away from one CIA officer directing one hacker who attacks one target. Rather, we're seeing systems developed and whole branches of the Central Intelligence Agency to automate attacks and infestations of CIA malware into targets. How do these practices by the CIA impact on members of the general public? Android phones, iPhones, Samsung TVs, etc. Well, in a number of ways. So you might think, as a member of the kind of average person, well, is the CIA interested in you? We have this problem that increasing automation of these attacks means that the interest may not have to be that high. You might know someone who knows someone who, say, works for the French government, who will be the target of such an attack because they're involved in decision-making about large French exports. And we published a previous document showing how the ODNI, that's the oversight body for all intelligence agencies, instructed the CIA to try and get hold of every single French contract valued at over $200 million. Similarly, in the information we revealed about CIA attacks on the French political parties, there was 2 instructions to try and determine whether French political parties would try and go for a more German-oriented economic policy of increasing exports. Now, presumably what's going on is that the Central Intelligence Agency and the ODNI, through who they tend to be involved in contracting, is close to organizations, say, like Boeing, and then wants to assist Boeing in unfair competition, say, against Airbus, which the French have a stake in. The question about redactions. WikiLeaks has often stated that it only redacts in exceptional cases. Well, there's been a lot of false reportage about what our redaction policy is. Our redaction policy is essentially the same as the Freedom of Information Act, which is we don't redact unless there are important grounds to do so, and then we only do so for a limited period of time until those important grounds have elapsed. In this particular case, we redacted some 78,000 pieces of information for Vault 7 Part 1. That information corresponds as I said before, to IP addresses of targets and attack machines. Well, why did we redact that? Well, because we're in this we want to investigate which ones are targets, which ones are attack machines, which ones were victims that were attacked to get a placehold to make another attack. And if we publish them all immediately, it'll be harder to create that investigation. What is the time period that these publications relate to? The time period is 2013 to 2016 for the Part 1 publication that we published on Tuesday. Other material in Vault 7 is also recent, and there is some older material. Interestingly, one of the key systems, attack systems developed by the Central Intelligence Agency, which affects multiple computer types at once, is called Hive. And if you look carefully, you will see that in our publications on Tuesday, there's a reference to Hive being first started more than a decade ago. So the CIA has been involved in this for quite a long period of time, gradually expanding its capacity as it managed to get budgetary and political preeminence over its chief bureaucratic and budgetary rival, the National Security Agency. So that's a very interesting story about the conflict between these two rival agencies over time, with the CIA budget that used to be smaller than the national security budget and is now something like 1.5 times the size of the national security budget. As a result, the CIA has been able to build its own drone air force and massively expand its hacking operation, so it doesn't need to ask the National Security Agency for favors. And of course, if you ask someone for a favor can be asked back, but also a lot of the operations that the CIA conducts are a bit questionable. For example, that operation conducted against the Senate Intelligence Committee. Now, if the CIA had no capacity of its own, it would have had to ask the National Security Agency to provide it with hackers to help it attack and try and take those CIA documents off Dianne Feinstein and her staff. Now, it wasn't able to, it didn't need to disclose that to the National Security Agency because it had the capacities to do it itself. And the National Security Agency, having been so prominent, especially after the Edward Snowden publications in 2013, has far more oversight and accountability for its digital operations than the Central Intelligence Agency does. It's a real question whether in practice there can be meaningful oversight. I don't think there can be. I think it's an illusion that there can be meaningful oversight, although one has to try, because you can't leave a regulatory ground unoccupied, because it will simply, the bureaucratic organization will simply expand into that regulatory ground and occupy it. So why can't the CIA's hacking operations be effectively regulated? Well, they're done in secret. It's arcane, complex technology. And look what has happened with the CIA loss of control over its entire cyber weapons arsenal. So if the CIA, which is certainly is highly motivated to try and keep control of its cyber weapons arsenal, if it can't even control its entire cyber weapons arsenal because information can flow without oversight, then what is the chance that it can control how that arsenal is used? It can't. There's absolutely nothing to stop a random CIA officer or contractor or liaison agent working for the British using that technology against whoever they like, for whatever personal reasons they like. The technology is designed to be unaccountable. It's designed to be untraceable. It's designed to hide itself. It's designed to remove traces of its activity. It's designed to throw off people looking to see where there are fingerprints that might demonstrate who authored that technology. And that is done by collecting viruses and malware from mafia and various groups in other states and assembling them. That's something that we published, that there's a whole section of the CIA working on something called Umbrage, which is designed to do that. And we have quite a lot more material that talks about these attempts to throw off to throw off attribution, to discover who was really behind a particular cyber attack. Already, an antivirus expert has come forward to say that a sophisticated malware that he had attributed to a state, either Iran, China, or Russia, now he believes actually is from a Central Intelligence Agency, because the type of attack system it uses corresponds directly to a description that we published of that attack system, and it's rare enough that it seems unlikely it would be independently discovered. Unless, of course, that China has already gotten hold of these parts of the CIA arsenal, and that China is using them to pretend to be the CIA. Is the CIA causing commercial damage to companies through these practices? Yes, potentially billions of dollars of damage. Because if, say, you're in China, which is now the world's largest economy, and you run a company and you want to equip all your employees with particular phones or particular computers, do you trust that if you go and buy a Dell computer or a computer running Microsoft or an Apple phone, can you trust that it's not vulnerable to these CIA attacks? Well, because Apple and Dell and so on are all based in the United States, when it's understood that the US government is breaching previous promises that it has made, which is to tell US industry about these vulnerabilities, then it starts to look like that the US government and US industry is in cahoots. And then you can't trust any exports from the United States. So one report, just at the time of the Edward Snowden revelations, suggested that that practice by the National Security Agency of imperiling US industry would cost $40 billion in exports. So this sort of behavior by the Central Intelligence Agency, undermining those commitments by the Barack Obama administration to tell US technology companies about vulnerabilities before they were exploited by foreign intelligence agencies or by cyber mafia. That breach of promise decreases trust both in the US government but also in US exports. What is the role of the US consulate in Frankfurt? At the US consulate in Frankfurt, our publications reveal, is a CIA hacker base that people go there from the Central Intelligence Agency. They're given instructions about how to get past German customs, and they operate out of that hacker base to attack targets within Europe, within Africa, and within the Middle East. If you look at the consulate, that's quite remarkable. It's an enormous complex. There was something like 2,000 people working there. They're not all computer hackers. They're presumably other elements of the Central Intelligence Agency and some genuine consular work. But the German press is quite concerned about it, and the chief prosecutor of Germany, who corresponds in some ways to the US Attorney General, being an equivalent position. His name is Peter Frank, and he announced yesterday that the German government is conducting a preliminary investigation to see if it will launch a major probe into the activities being conducted out of that consulate, and also more broadly whether people in Germany are being attacked by the Central Intelligence Agency. I suppose that my analysis is, and it's borne out to a degree by our documents, is that, well, that consulate is in Schengen, so it's in the open border area of Europe. Once you're there, you can go out to 25 different countries, Italy, Switzerland, France, etc., and attack targets there. And you go, well, okay, but the Central Intelligence Agency hackers, why do they need to go into Europe at all physically? I mean, can't they just hack from Langley, Virginia? Well, they can hack some types of attacks from Langley, Virginia, maybe even the majority. But there's many other types of attacks that the CIA has developed which involve getting physically close to someone or to their computer system, or slipping in very quickly a USB into, say, the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs or Export, and having that malware then go into the computer system, steal things and pull it back onto the USB, and then walking off. So those types of proximal attacks require physical proximity. And so once you're in Schengen, and attack targets there. And you go, well, okay, but the Central Intelligence Agency hackers, why do they need to go into Europe at all physically? I mean, can't they just hack from Langley, Virginia? Well, they can hack some types of attacks from Langley, Virginia, maybe even the majority. But there's many other types of attacks that the CIA has developed which involve getting physically close to someone or to their computer system, or slipping in very quickly a USB into, say, the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs or Export,